My name is Noel Pretorius.
And I am María Ramos.
Together we're NM Type. We're very happy to be here today. We're going to be talking about typefaces. Well, it's great for us to be in the same room together. As I'm based in Sweden and Maria's based in Spain, we haven't seen each other in the real world for over 2 years. Our office space is a virtual studio, and our collaboration is a digital one.
We met in 2014 while doing a master's degree in typeface design in Reading, England. When we came back home, we decided to start a project together, which became the beginnings of NN Type. We are now a type design studio.
While looking for inspirations for our first typeface, we discovered the Alexandra Calder exhibition at the Tate Modern in London. We were fascinated with how Calder played with organic forms within his art. Sans serifs are a very popular font genre amongst designers, and we wanted to contribute something useful and meaningful, a geometric sans that could be used as an original alternative to other sans serifs in the market. That was our starting point. We were inspired by Calder and how he played with these organic forms, and basically we started and began by sketching letters. And we began with the lowercase letter A. It's a very important letter to get right, as it contains the basic DNA of the typeface. The design features for our typeface was that we decided it was going to be light, soft, and the shapes would feel organic. As we were designing a geometric typeface, geometry was a key feature from the beginning, and Calder gave us clues on how to use it. A circle will still feel like a circle, even with an irregular counter. Without being distracting, all the dots in our typeface are different.
There are many interesting design details in the design process of Kinetic. We have been playful with proportions and didn't follow conventional patterns. Just to look at a few examples, if you look at a capital letter A and how we move the crossbar from the optical center, or the short terminal of the E and how we open the letter shapes. If you look closely, you will notice we have introduced slightly curved terminals for the strokes. When you print, the ink softens the contours of the shapes. We wanted to recreate something similar on a screen. For the italic letter forms, we have used a different structure. Where possible, the letters are made from a single stroke, just as if they were made of bent wire. Most sans serif fonts today have a large X height, and they usually need extra space in between lines because the text looks too dark. We wanted to create a typeface for a light texture. Kinetic has a small X height and long ascenders. The contours are open and large, so it's still legible at small sizes. It is a typeface that feels comfortable to read. Just as musicians play with sounds, we, as type designers, play with shapes. We decided to go wide with the round letter forms and stay narrow with the straight, simple ones. The result is a useful typeface that has already been used in art books, exhibition, and hotel identities.
Right after the release of Kinetic, we designed a custom typeface for the international brand Jägermeister. The ad agency Opperman & Weiss from New York, they approached us as they were working with a worldwide campaign, and the typefaces they were working with were not really working the way they wanted them to. So they commissioned us to design a custom typeface for Jägermeister's global communication. The TVC campaign was one of the first samples of the typeface in use.
Trick or treat.
Jägermeister is a herbal liqueur that can be found in just about any bar, restaurant, or music festival on the planet. When we were designing with Jägermeister, it was very important that we had a close relationship with the client, and also the reason why brands basically commission custom typefaces is that they're strong brand carriers in all media channels. They also give a brand a unique design voice and expression. The ad agency were looking for a strong display typeface. And we were doing a lot of researching, and we found it in basically paying homage to Jägermeister's German heritage. We looked at inspirations of the 19th century Bauhaus blocky typography, and we also were inspired by designers inspired by constructivism.
We started by experimenting with some shapes. We wanted to maintain that blocky appearance of characters. And for achieving that, we wanted the proportions of uppercase letters to be closer to a square than a rectangle. We made wide characters, large bols, and set a low cap height. One of the interesting and nice things of working with the agency early on is that we were able to see how the typeface was going to be used. They were using type at large sizes, and they were rotating the text at a 45-degree angle. So we used that feature for our design. We cut the terminals at 45-degree angle and also used some diagonals at that same angle. That allowed us to provide the text with stability when it's rotated. There are many other design details that make for a coherent design in type. In this particular case, we also decided to flatten the curvature in some letter shapes, like the U, as a reference to the iconic bottle of the brand. We also included some fan displayed characters, like this one, which we call twin ligatures, because they melt two identical letters into a unique shape. And as this was an international brand and campaign, we also included diacritics for using the typeface in different languages, and included alternates to maintain that blocky appearance we were talking about. Meister, the custom typeface we have created for the brand, is currently used in TV commercials. We have seen one before, in print, outdoor advertising, and digital, and the international website. Custom type is a powerful tool. It doesn't matter where you use it. Type is always there, talking to the audience in a direct and personal way.
It's nice to see how projects connect. All our releases have led to new and exciting things. After publishing our work for Jägermeister, we were approached by Ravi from the Design Indaba, and he asked us, "What is your dream unrealized project?" And we replied that we've always wanted to design a typeface inspired by the movement of a dancer, and that's exactly what we've done. Our collaboration began last October when we were introduced to Untitled, a talented choreographer and dancer from South Africa. We set up a number of video conference calls with the team from Design Indaba to define the concept, but also to work out the design features of, the project. And the thing is that, like with all our projects, that we need an inspirational source. And we looked at Andela's movements as our departing point. And other art disciplines have used music or movement as a form of expression. The body of a dancer or the hand of an artist can perfectly be seen as creative tools. We're very happy to have you today, the artist who inspired our new design. Please welcome on stage Andela and enjoy the art of dance.
Wow, that was very emotional for us. It's actually one of the few times we have seen Andile's performance live. Did you get some letters there in the performance? I guess you did, at least a few. But how would you translate the movements of a dancer into type? Our research led us to the Hungarian dancer and choreographer Rudolf Laban. Rudolf Laban was interested in the movement of the human body and the space surrounding it. He described movement by the inner intention of the dancer, using three main factors: weight, time, and space, having each factor two streams, being, for example, the streams in weight, light, and heavy. There is a very descriptive example that I think it makes this easier to understand. When you punch or when you reach a glass, your arm traces a similar track, but the characteristics of that movement are opposite, and they have a very different meaning. We broke down Laban's theory into this simple chart, creating two types of movement, direct and indirect. We had an initial idea for the structure of the characters, but also wanted to give Andile some freedom to express himself.
We asked Andile to perform each letter twice, one in a direct movement, heavy, quick, and bound. The other in an indirect movement, light, slow, and flexible. Just as a calligrapher holds the idea of a letter shape in their heads before putting a pen to page, so too did Andile through dance. He needed to visualize the shapes in his mind and then work out ways to guide the movement of his body. We tracked his movements using paths. It was used more as a reference than as a strict structure. For example, if you look at the letter R, our first approach was a more conventional one. But then after studying Andile's movements more closely, we came up with a more experimental letter shape. An interesting observation was made while we were filming the numbers, is that we noticed Andile was performing some of them from a different viewpoint perspective. And letters and numbers have a different vernacular too. It was quite cheeky. And letters and numbers have a different vernacular too, as our letters come from Latin and our numbers from the Arabic script. So then we decided to actually film all the numbers from an aerial viewpoint instead. All that was left to do was then to basically decode Andile's movements and find the right formula to make it work as a typeface. We adjusted proportions, and we looked at design features so that all the characters belong together.
Many might think that type design is just something anchored in the past. But the truth is that type, as language, is always evolving. Noticing the many possibilities of the new variable format, we made our typeface into one. For those of you who never heard of the term variable font before, we are going to explain it briefly. A variable font is a single font file that performs like multiple fonts in a relatively small font size. One of the advantages of this format is that you can make your website smaller in size while having a wider typographic palette. A variable font creates design streams in between different designs. So, for example, if you have a black and a thin, you can generate variants like bold or semi-bold, but you can also choose any other value in between.
When you design a variable font, it's essential to define your design axis. Using Laban's theory of movement, we considered three main factors when studying Andile's performance. They were weight, space, and time. We identified direct movement with strong straight lines and indirect movement with curved light strokes. Our variable font has two design axes. It has weight, space, and four design extremes: direct thin, direct black, indirect thin, and indirect black. And all the variants in between are the basic changes of movement in time. Variable fonts are still in their experimental phase, and designers and developers are working on making them available for all font users. But you can become early adopters of this new font technology and start using it for your web and print projects.
As my mother says, it's always good to bring a present when you are visiting someone. We are very thankful to Design Indaba and all the people involved in this project for making it possible. All of you can now use and download this typeface for free.
And lastly, we at NM Type, we love experiments, as you never know what you're going to get. We would love for all our typeface releases to have a story to tell. The story of movement has just begun, and we're really looking forward to seeing where your designs take it. Thank you for having us.
Thank you.